Every calisthenics skill you should learn in order for your first 3 years.
Starting off with skill number 1, hollow body hangs. I chose this skill to start with first because hanging has many benefits. From back pain alleviation, spine decompression, and strengthening your grip, hanging is the perfect way to start. When you draw your shoulders down and back, you switch from a dead hang to an active hang. The setup is pretty simple. Simply find a bar, block, or rings that you can hang off of. As long as you're just hanging, you're in a dead hang position. But if you activate your core muscles and squeeze your thighs together, you're going to be classified as an active hang. Squeezing your core and thighs together is perfect for mastering stillness while hanging from the bar. The best way to train this exercise is by alleviating your weight and joints. So tie a resistance band around the bar and hang from it. As you get stronger, I want you to lower the resistance band you're using. Moving on to number 2, the frog stand. I obviously chose the frog stand because I want us to start hand balancing as early as possible. I'm a firm believer that the earlier we do this, the better it's going to be later on when we're doing handstands. As far as the perfect form setup, you want to think about sticking your elbows into your knees. This is how you're going to balance. Do not keep your hands forward. Turn them slightly outwards to alleviate wrist pain. There's going to be 3 balance points. First is your fingertips, the inside of your knuckles where your calluses are, and the palm. In this frog stand position, you'll feel most of the weight on the outside of your hand. Training for the frog stand is all about getting comfortable in this inverted position. Start off with rocks so you can get the feeling right. Next, I want you to move on to simple holds. You're going to do each of these exercises until you can hold them for at least 20 seconds. The objective of these regressions is to get you more comfortable with balancing on your hands. Leg taps or leg switches is going to be the next best thing when it comes to progressions. Again, once you can hold this position for 20 seconds, no problem, you're ready to move on to the next one. Some people would prefer a pillow or some kind of cushion for your head. It's possible to overbalance and have your head bonk on the ground, so hopefully adding a pillow or some sort of cushion there helps protect you from that. Last but not least, we're going to utilize elevation. Remember this setup. Look how I'm basically holding the perfect frog stand, and all I had to do was lean into it. Now moving on to number 3. Hollow body holds. Hollow body holds is an anti-extension exercise. It's one of the first core exercises I recommend doing. Setup is extremely simple. Get on the ground with me. As you lay down, you'll notice the lower part of your back comes up. Actively focus on pressing that into the ground. To do that, your shoulders will come off the ground naturally. Next, you want to lift your legs off the ground and extend them. Spread out as if you were holding a sideways handstand. This is going to teach you about pelvic tilt. If the full hold is too much, simply bring your legs closer to your body and that should alleviate some of the stress. As it gets easier, experiment with certain positions like one leg holds or even straddle holds to get you going for the full thing. Mastery means holding it for 45 seconds. Moving on to number 4, the Pseudo Planche lean. The Pseudo Planche lean is a prerequisite for the full planche. It's extremely heavy on your front delts. Form setup is simple. Protract your scapula or push your shoulder blades away from you. Make sure you're not shrugging your shoulders up. When it comes to the hand position, turn your hand slightly outwards to alleviate any wrist pain. Conquering this position means perfect form with straight arms. You can set up for it like a regular plank. Leaning forward classifies you as a pseudo planche lean. This looks like a regular plank, but I promise you it's more intense than you can even imagine. No lazy cores. Make sure you apply tension to your abdominal muscles. Again, avoid struggling up towards your ears. Don't let your hips sag. Squeeze those thighs and apply tension to those glute muscles. And push out with your shoulders the entire time. Mastery means having your hips stacked over your wrist. The best way to train this is by having a wall or block in front of you. Measure how far you're leaning forward by your hand position. Work on this consistently. Moving on to number 5, the Pseudo Planche Push-Up. Obviously, incorporating the last skill that we learned, we're simply adding a push-up to that maneuver while we're maintaining that forward lean. You don't understand it yet, but getting strong in this position is going to be essential for mastering advanced skills in the future. Front delt strength is truly king when it comes to calisthenics. If it's too hard to maintain the forward lean, I want you to simply lean into it when you're pushing up and then push all the way back to a regular push-up position. This should make it easier on you. Eventually, you will want to focus on having that forward lean maintained throughout the entire exercise. Moving on to number 6, the tuck front lever. You might be suspicious of this skill, but trust me, it's more difficult than it looks. And it takes a significant amount of straight arm strength and back strength. Thankfully, training for this movement is actually pretty simple. Get on the bar and stick your knees towards your chest. While maintaining straight arms, you want to raise your body until your ankles touch the bar and gently lean yourself back to neutral position. Over time, you'll be able to hold that horizontal static position. Most people will end up bending their arms or shaking uncontrollably when lifting themselves up. Moving on to number 7, the elbow lever. The elbow lever is one of the first cool skills you actually get to learn. It looks like you're floating. How can you not love it? Form setup is all about weight distribution. Stick your hands out in front of you and turn them slightly outwards or even completely all the way around. You'll want to stick both of your elbows into your abdominals. It should look like this. Trust me, I know it looks weird, but this is exactly what we need to transfer onto the ground. Although this is considered hand balancing, training it is not as simple as it seems. You'll notice as I'm leaning into my hands, I'm gently starting to lift my legs up. If I want to progress even further, I'm going to lean even further into my hands and squeeze my glutes into the straddle position. And lastly, I'm going to lean a little bit further, squeezing my legs together, which gives me that straight line. Stomach pain where your elbows are is completely normal. On to number 8, the German hang. If you want to talk about increasing your shoulder mobility to superhuman limits, the German hang is where you need to be. I know this looks crazy and scary, but you can train with this by putting a block or bench below you. As you get into the position, lower yourself as safely as possible until your feet are touching the block. As we get stronger and more tolerant in this German hang position, we're going to release the blocks until we can do it freestanding like I am now. It's a great shoulder mobility drill. Moving further to number 9, the butcher's block. Most people don't know about this exercise, but it's essential for having the perfect straight handstand. When it comes to perfect form setup, we want to make sure we have our elbows tucked. Avoid having them spread out. You can build strength in this position by doing it on your knees first. Get a feeling for the movement and feel how it opens up your shoulders. This is a skill that's truly slept on, and we need to make sure that our shoulder mobility is top tier. Make sure to actively sink your hips, engaging your core. Once you can hold this position for at least 30 seconds, you're ready to progress it even further by adding some sort of small weight. I usually do 10 or 15 pounds, so don't overdo it. And now, on to skill number 10, the pistol squat, our first leg skill. The pistol squat is not just a party trick, it actually trains most of the muscles in your leg, and it requires an exceptional amount of hip mobility and ankle mobility to complete. When performing, make sure to keep your knees turned outwards and your leg extended. You can train for this movement a number of ways. The first one I'm suggesting is by putting some sort of block or bench under you. Not only will this help you get the form right, but this will also assist you if you're having any sort of preliminary knee pain. So this is a good progression to remember as is. The next progression is going to be step-ups. Start on top of a block or bench and lower yourself as slowly as possible before exploding back up to the top of the rep. You'll steadily gain mobility by doing this exercise. And last but not least, the holy grail is the assisted pistol squat. Perform the pistol squat as well as you know how, and use a block, bench, or even an exercise bike to help you through the latter half of the movement. Next up is skill number 11, the tuck back lever. This skill is similar to the front lever, except this time we're lifting ourselves past the bar. You should remember this position from the previous German hang skill, except this time we're stopping just short and lifting our chest up, not extending our legs and simply staying in that horizontal position. The proper way to train this movement is the exact same way as the front lever. Using straight arms, we're going to lift ourselves until our ankles touch the bar, lowering ourselves back down gently into that horizontal position. And for the next skill we're going to go over, number 12 is compact leg lifts. This is another one of my favorite core exercises. I believe it's essential and integral for your mastery of calisthenics. Set up for this movement by putting your hands around knee level or the bottom of your thigh level. As you place your hands down, make sure you push out and down with your back. Keep your legs extended and lift them into the sky as much as you can. It might not look like it, but this compact leg lift is going to be essential for a future skill that we're going to go over. If this movement is too hard, I want you to focus on single compact leg lifts. This movement is all about gaining hip mobility and core compression. Likewise, if this movement is too easy for you, you can reach your hands even further, like the top of your ankles, and lift your legs like that. So let's say you're not here yet, and single leg lifts are still too hard for you. Place some kind of dumbbell or even paper towel roll in front of you. Focus on doing single leg lifts into the sky, making sure to not touch the paper towel roll or dumbbell. When you can manage that with one leg, I want you to switch to doing it with both legs. This is all for the mastery of core compression and hip mobility, but we're going to get some ab development doing this as well. My final tip for mastering this exercise is using a wall as leverage for your upper back. Lean into the wall, and that should make it easier for you to do single leg lifts or even both leg lifts. I know this looks easy, but it's going to take you some time to get your legs perfectly straight like this and be able to lift it with no problem. Moving on to number 13, the Pike Push-Up. If you want to talk about building some bolder shoulders and getting some insane overhead pushing strength, the Pike Push-Up is going to be your favorite push-up form. Even being slightly inverted like this is going to make it significantly harder for you to control your breath while performing this exercise. The proper form setup for this exercise includes having your head fall above your hands on the decline. You'll want to avoid having your elbows flared out during this exercise. This does not transfer over to advanced skills. Instead, opt for a tucked elbow position. This will prevent any unnecessary shoulder flaring and should transfer over to advanced skills. Don't only push up during this exercise, make sure you push out through your shoulders. When it comes to training for this exercise, the best way is to lengthen the pike that you're using. Perform the regression confidently, making sure your head falls above your hands on the decline and pushing up and out through your shoulders on the incline. Next up is the almighty L-sit. This is a full body exercise focused on core compression. Set up for this exercise by learning how to depress your scapula, which means pushing down so your shoulder blades are being drawn down as well. Practice depressing your scapula with straight arms. And as you push down into the ground, make sure to levitate your hips back. And now utilizing that compact leg lift to lift our legs up into the air. You can train for this skill by doing single leg alternating L-sits. If you've been following and mastered the compact leg lift, then this skill should be easy for you to learn in no time. Moving on to skill number 15, the archer push-up. It was given its name because you look like an archer holding a bow at the bottom of the rep. The thing that makes this skill so brutal is having that straight arm on the opposite end of the spectrum. This makes this skill a proper regression for the one-arm push-up. The unilateral training style for the archer push-up makes conquering your imbalances simple. You can set up for training this exercise by doing bent arm archer push-ups. No need to all-out sprint into doing a straight arm position. As we gain strength, we'll be building joint flexibility and mobility in no time. Skill number 16, the tuck planche. This is us taking the pseudo planche lean even further. As you can see, we have our legs off the ground, and that's what makes the magic happen for this. When it comes to the form setup, we want to make sure we maintain straight arms. Slide your knees into your chest and keep your feet touching the ground. If this is comfortable, I want you to begin to do alternating leg taps. Make sure you do not lose scapular protraction during the duration of your regressions. Those leg taps should have you unlocking the tuck planche in no time. I told you, front delt strength is king. And now, on to number 17, the reverse Nordic. Reverse Nordic is the best way to build some monster quads with nothing but your own body weight. You'll be strengthening and stretching your quads while alleviating knee pain. Set up with your knees about shoulder length, and have your feet laying flat. Squeeze your glutes and descend controlled. Do not use any sort of momentum to bounce through this movement. Maintain a straight line throughout the duration of the exercise, engaging your core and engaging your glutes throughout. If you'd like to properly practice this maneuver, stake your feet on top of a small elevation. This should shorten the range of motion for you, and as you gain strength, lower the elevation as needed. Lastly, if you have resistance bands, use those to help you through the latter half of the movement. This will help you practice strict form, and as you gain strength and need less help, you can lower the resistance band that you're using, until eventually you can perform the reverse Nordic freestanding. Number 18, the straddle sit. The straddle sit is an advanced variation of the L-sit. It's very cool to do, and I'm going to teach you how simple it is to learn. You'll want to turn your hand slightly outwards, even out to the side. The best way to perform this exercise is to get in it from a squatting position. As you settle into it, you'll notice you're sort of planching into position. Train the flexibility and mobility required by doing straddle leg lifts. So straddle leg lifts for the straddle sit and compact for the L sit. Getting into this exercise from the ground is insanely hard. To get into it, you'll have to kind of rock into the motion, which is why the best thing to do is to start from a squat position. Skill number 19, the shoulder stand. Although the shoulder stand doesn't look as cool, it's going to be very essential for building shoulder strength and end range strength for the handstand push-up. We're going to train this movement on a wall. Get into the frog stand position and start with one leg until you can eventually put two legs up. Or you can use a wall to lower yourself into the full position as well. Focus on breathing. Skill number 20, the muscle up. The muscle up is a dynamic maneuver and staple in the calisthenics world. You start from under the bar and explosively pull yourself up and over the bar. When it comes to properly setting up for this movement, you can't do a regular pull-up. If you go for an arched back position, the bar is going to be in the way. Take a page from the first skill we learned and do a hollow body pull-up position. The hollow position is going to help you out. Jump up and grab the bar and let your feet swing forward until dropping down below. Try this a couple of times so you can get an understanding for the movement. Next, I want you to jump up, grab the bar, let your feet fall forward, and at the end of your momentum, drive your knees into your chest. Try this a couple of times so you can see where the momentum begins and ends. With those 3 tips, I want you to combine them all together. Drive your knees into your chest as you explosively pull up. That should generate enough momentum to get you over the bar. If you'd like more help, simply use a resistance band to help you practice the proper form. Again, lower the resistance band as needed. A lot of people have the strength for the muscle up, but they lack the technique, which is why I teach them the knee drive first. You'll stop kipping as you gain strength. Skill number 21, the handstand. The handstand will probably be the skill that takes you the longest to learn. It can take months to learn, but years to perfect. proper form for a handstand includes having your shoulders pressed out over your ears, as well as having completely locked out arms. The handstand is like learning how to walk again, so let's make this as simple as possible. Remember, we learned how to tilt our pelvis forward from the hollow body hold. Practice that here to bring your hips in line with the rest of your body. We already talked about the 3 balance points, but let's go over them again. It's going to be the top of your fingertips, the inside of your knuckles where your calluses usually are, and it's going to be the palm. Just like with your feet, if you fall too far forward, push in with your fingertips, and if you fall too far back, push in with your palms, until you have a happy, neutral position. If you want to learn the easiest way to train a handstand, do it on a wall. You'll spend more time on your hands and less time falling over. 10 to 15 minutes of practice and sets of 10 to 20 seconds is all you need to steadily master hand balancing. Handstands can be scary, so let's talk about the perfect way to bail out. You'll notice I'm keeping one hand on the ground that guides me as I'm falling over in my handstand. Keep the guiding hand on the ground until one of your feet touches the ground. Then you're safe to get up. Skill number 22, the handstand push-up. This skill combines the shoulder stand and the pike push-up together. It takes a tremendous amount of strength, body control, and body awareness to even perform. As for the form setup, when we get to the bottom of the rep, we still have our basic 3 balance points, our fingertips, our calluses, and our palms. You'll feel most of the weight on the outside of your hands. The best way to train a handstand push-up is by doing it against a wall. This way you can practice proper form and gain strength without the worry of falling over all the time. Don't feel rushed to complete every single one of these skills in exactly 1 year, but use this as a sure guide to check off any skills that you might want to learn. I'd recommend you complete the skills in the order that I provided, but you can go in however order benefits you the best.
And now that we're done with year 1, let's move on to year 2 calisthenic skills. Starting with skill number 1, single arm hangs. This is meant to take our hanging and grip strength journey even further. Conquer this exercise by using a resistance band and lower it as needed. If you don't have a resistance band, doing alternating one arm hangs is going to be the next best thing. As you gain strength over time, increase the duration you stay at one arm before you alternate to the next. Skill number 2 is hanging leg raises. Setup is extremely simple. Grab the bar with your palms facing away from you. Gain the shoulder and core strength required by switching out to knee raises. If you keep your legs bent, this is going to put less stress on your quads. Knee raises are going to give you some serious ab development. And it's also a great way to brush up on our core compression skills that we learned in year 1. I know it doesn't seem like it, but knee raises will eventually become easy, and that's when we can switch out for a straight leg position. You should recognize this straight leg position as similar to the L-sit that we learned in year 1 as well. Whether you're doing knee raises or leg lifts, at all costs, avoid using momentum. Calisthenics is all about eliminating the use of momentum and conquering that range of motion yourself. So if you're having trouble swinging and turning this into a hip movement, I have the perfect solution for you. Instead of grabbing the bar with your hands facing forward away from you, I want you to flip your palms towards you and try out this chin up or supinated grip. The reason this supinated grip is amazing for hanging leg lifts is because it forces you to stay upright. You'll have a much harder time swinging where you unconsciously turn this into a hip flexor movement. You'll have to recruit more of your core muscles. Now let's talk about number 3, the V-sit. The V-sit is a progression of the L-sit, so to train this we have to progress our compact leg lift. There's a few ways we can do that. The first one's going to be a weighted compact leg lift, where we add a simple 5-pound or 10-pound to our legs. The second one's going to be advancing our compact leg lift by reaching even further. Maybe choose the top of your ankles. You'll notice how this significantly increases the difficulty. If both of these progressions don't work for you, and you happen to have a resistance band, tie it around your neck and the base of your feet. Banded compact leg lifts force your legs up to your core, maintaining a proper compression with resistance to getting out of it. The next progression, and my favorite one, is going to be the L-sit leg lift. Simply start in the L-sit and raise your hips into the sky till you reach a V-sit level. And the last progression, banded L-sits. See how my legs are forced into the sky automatically? When you're performing the V-sit, most of the pressure ends up on the palm of your hands, so look out for that feeling. Moving on to skill number 4, the sissy squat. But there's nothing sissy about it. Proper form means unstruggling your shoulders and tightening your glutes. You should maintain being on your toes for the duration of the movement. The best way to train this awkward quad builder is starting right in front of a wall. Take one step back and you're officially in the perfect position. Place your hands on the wall in front of you. Flex your core and squat until your knees touch the wall. I want you to focus on having a straight posture throughout the duration of the exercise. Step back even further as you progress in strength. You should recognize this position as a standing reverse Nordic. If the wall trick doesn't work for you, simply grab a block, rings, bar, pretty much anything that can help you through the latter half of the movement and reduce the assistance over time. Skill number 5, the gymnastic swing. Set up for this movement by keeping your elbows straight and parallel. Grab onto the bar as if you were halfway through a pull-up. Swing your body under the bar and back to neutral. Do this until your shoulder blades touch. Another awkward maneuver, but let me show you the perfect way to train it. Using a resistance band will reduce the load of your weight, making it easier for you to stay upright in this position. Your body will thank you with stronger and mobile shoulders. Moving on to number 6, the bodyweight deadlift. During year 2, you can see we're utilizing a lot of equipment like resistance bands and gymnastic rings. Set up by grabbing the rings or bar. Make sure your body is completely inverted. Try your best to keep straight arms throughout this movement. One of the best ways to train for this movement is simply trying it. You might not have realized it yet, but during year 1, we already built the strength required to perform this movement. Start by lowering your body in a controlled movement to what appears to be a recognizable position. It's similar to the tuck front lever we learned in year 1. If you want a defined Dorito back, this is going to be one of your favorite exercises to perform from now on, so you're welcome. At the bottom of the movement, press your hips back into the sky, making sure your toes are touching the bar at the neutral position. Being inverted is almost an everyday thing when it comes to calisthenics. Skill number 7, the Kip-Up. Our first explosive movement. Train this skill by performing simple forward rolls. When you roll back, make sure you roll back into your shoulders. Remember, the further you roll back into your shoulders, the more explosive the Kip-Up is going to be. If when you roll back, most of your upper and middle back is still on the ground, you're not going to have as explosive as a Kip-Up. Next, I want you to practice rolling back and rolling onto your feet. Combine everything we just learned together with a forward roll, and this time at the end, add a push. Landing on your feet perfectly takes time, so don't get upset if you stumble. Over time, this becomes one of your favorite ways to get up, and you can combine it with other skills. Skill number 8, the back lever. You're gonna love this one. You'll see the form position. When we raise our arms up, it activates our triceps to a great extent. At all costs, avoid having your hips sinking while you're in this position. Remember the hollow body hold we learned in year 1? Use your core to tilt your pelvis and bring it back in line with the rest of your body. You can start off in the regular tuck back lever position. As you move your legs away from you, your body will straighten out. Work through these progressions until you master the full back lever. You'll have a much easier time unlocking this than the front lever. Again, don't let your hips sink. Remember to tilt your pelvis forward and bring it back in line with the rest of your body, or you'll end up having this banana back position, which is not aesthetic. Skill number 9, the advanced tuck front lever. We're simply advancing our tuck front lever here. Start off in the regular position. Start to move your knees away from your chest, and you'll notice that when you do that, your back starts to flatten out. Strict form says your hands should be in line with your hips. Training this maneuver is simple. Start in the tuck planche position and do pulses, moving it to an advanced and back to the original. Skill number 10, the half dragon squat. Usually we keep our body upright when we're doing a squat, but for this one we're going to angle it slightly as we squat down. As a reference point, you'll want to think about your knee touching the outside middle of your supporting foot. Like with all squat movements, we're going to train them with elevation. The half dragon squat is no exception. Elevated dragon squat can help you build an understanding of the movement and the weight distribution required for performing it. If touching the outside middle of your foot is hard, do heel touch squats. These are nothing to play with either, but heel touch squats can definitely help you build an understanding for the movement and what it takes to eventually work towards the half dragon squat. This does require a lot of hip mobility and a decent amount of ankle mobility, but if you've been training with me since year 1 skills, then we should have no problem unlocking this in this second year of calisthenics. Moving forward to skill number 11, the advanced tuck planche. If you haven't realized, this is an advanced version of the tuck planche and pseudo planche lean we learned in year 1. The greater lean forward means most of the pressure is going to be on these front 3 fingers. At all costs, do not lose scapular protraction during the movement. Training for this exercise is similar to the advanced tuck lever. We're going to do pulses, starting from the regular position and then moving into the advanced one. Over time, we should understand the mechanics and we will build tolerance in the advanced tuck position. Don't give up. Skill number 12, the back bridge. The back bridge or wheel pose is best trained by using elevation. Start with your feet on top of a block or bench, and as you build tolerance and mobility, start to move your feet down lower. Do each progression until you can hold it no problem, until eventually you can do it from the ground. Focus on keeping your hips driven upwards, pushing out with your legs and having your chin tucked throughout the duration of the exercise. Moving on to skill number 13, the Bulgarian dip. This is different from a regular bodyweight dip. We're going to train this movement with static ring holds, keeping our arms locked out until we can maintain stillness throughout. And eventually we're going to add bands on top of this. The difference between the dips is that you want to avoid a tucked elbow position throughout the duration of the exercise. Instead, opt to keep your elbows out to the side and press up. This is going to make it significantly more difficult, but your body will thank you with stronger arms and a wider chest. Avoid tucking your legs. Keep tension on your entire body and squeeze those thighs together. Keeping tension on the lower half of your body is how you're going to maintain stillness as you perform this exercise. Skill number 14. L-sit pull-ups. Another combination skill we're adding together. Start with the L-sit position, and then we're going to simply pull up. Every time we pull up, we're going to make sure we go full range of motion, which means we're going to lock out our elbows in the bottom of the rep. You can train this exercise by doing leg lift pull-ups. Basically, we're going to get to an L-sit at the top of the rep instead of maintaining the L-sit throughout the duration. When you perform them properly, this can be a tremendous strength building exercise. Skill number 15, wrist pull-ups. This is a prerequisite for the false grip. You know how we usually grab a bar with our hands facing away from us? With the wrist pull-up, I want you to think about literally putting your wrist on the entirety of the bar. It should look something like this. Your hand's going to be completely wrapped around it. This awkward arm position activates the forearms to a great extent. We should already have the strength required to do a pull-up, so to train this properly, we're literally just going to let our wrists hang on the bar. We have to get comfortable and tolerant in this position, and it's a very slow process, so if you need more assistance, use a resistance band to assist those wrist hangs. When it doesn't feel terrible anymore, you can try to do a 1 or 2 wrist pull-ups, and even using a resistance band for assisted wrist pull-ups is going to help as well. Skill number 16, the archer pull-up. Instead of grabbing the bar in a normal way, where you have your thumbs wrapped around from the bottom, I want you to put your thumbs over the top for the archer pull-up. I found out that thumbs over the bar makes this exercise easier to transition into. Start with a wide grip to make this work. Train this exercise the same way we did archer push-ups. We're going to do half archer pull-ups the entire time. If we go for a full extension right off the bat, there's going to be a high possibility of injury. So steadily straighten out your arm over time by using things like resistance bands. We simply just need to understand the bodyweight position that we're searching for when it comes to the archer pull-up. Trust me, if you can do a couple of these, you're a bodyweight beast. Skill number 17, the almighty dragon flag. Set up by making a right angle position with your elbows. Grab onto a low-hanging bar or bench and start off in this tucked dragon position. Keep a fixed hollow body position throughout the entirety of the exercise. Lower yourself down without letting your middle back or lower back touch the ground and raise it back into the sky. As the bent leg position becomes tolerant for you, I want you to switch into the straddle dragon. We're going to follow the same principles that we learned before, making sure to maintain that straight line throughout the entirety of the exercise. You've probably seen this maneuver performed by Bruce Lee in Rocky Balboa and Rocky IV. Following the straddle dragon is going to be the next best thing, which is the full dragon flag, keeping our legs extended and squeezing our thighs together to maintain that stillness throughout the exercise. Are you understanding how we're utilizing our previous skills and adding them into this year 2 palette? To really solidify this movement, I want you to do isometric holds with every single progression that we just went over. Last but not least, we're going to work on the L-sit to handstand, our first flow. We're going to combine several skills here, starting with the L-sit, frog stand, shoulder stand, pike push-up, and handstand all together. This takes time and practice to do, so don't get frustrated. Remembering all the principles of every skill that we just learned and putting them together is going to be no easy task, but once you get it, it's going to be solidified. And finally, year 3 calisthenics skills to learn in order. Starting this guide off with the iconic 90-degree hold. You'll notice the form setup for this skill is extremely similar to the elbow lever. Keep your hands turned slightly outwards or completely around. You don't have the benefit of keeping your elbows into your stomach. You have to balance with just your arms. When it comes to proper body and hand position, keeping your forearms at 90 degrees is not enough weight distribution. As you extend your hands to hip range, you'll see more bicep activation. See if you can catch what I mean with this comparison. This is an elbow lever, and this is a 90-degree hold. Do you see the difference? There's a bunch of ways to train this skill, but I suggest you start by doing a 90-degree hold with your knees still touching the ground. This can help you get a feeling for the movement. Proceed forward by doing a straddle 90-degree hold. Start like you're in an elbow lever, and continuously move your elbows out. If you start training like this, you'll be sinking into the movement, but you'll get it. Take the progression one step further by keeping one foot on the ground. If you practice this with each leg, you'll definitely be able to get your first 90-degree hold in no time. But if you need more assistance, try parallettes or elevation. Remember, adding elevation is great for providing failure protection. Moving on to number 2, the straddle press handstand. Form setup means placing your hands on the ground shoulder length while you're in a straddle position. As you lean further into your hands, you'll notice you're elevating your scapula. Lift your heels off the ground and compress your core. And lastly, think about driving your toes upwards into the sky. Straight arm presses are no joke, but you can train for this by doing these press walks. It looks a little goofy, but each time you try this, you'll begin to understand the feeling behind this movement. And as you gain strength and experience, you'll begin to float in no time. But if you want more help, try doing press handstands against a wall. But if you're going to do it this way, you want to make sure that when you're pressing your back against the wall, and as you begin to lift your feet, you definitely don't want your skull to be the main leverage like I'm showing you in this clip. You want to make sure the leverage stays on your upper back throughout the entirety of the exercise, as this is what's going to translate to doing it in real life freestanding. I'm not going to lie to you, when you first start out, doing it against the wall is incredibly difficult, but it's necessary for you to master the eccentric and concentric of this exercise, so when you're doing it freestanding, you know exactly what to feel. And we'll master more advanced handstand presses in the future, but the straddle press is something that everybody should learn. Moving forward to number 3, the Pelican Push-Up. The Pelican Push-Up is a true game changer. It starts out like a regular incline push-up, but you'll notice as you sink further, it'll require a false grip and you'll target more bicep. The next and most important thing is pushing yourself back into neutral. The most helpful way to train this maneuver is on gymnastic rings. So if you're looking for the perfect way to train it, you'll want to use gymnastic rings at a standard height. Then as you gain strength and resilience in the bottom of the movement, you want to move the rings lower, putting more weight onto your body and giving yourself a deeper challenge. This advanced push-up not only builds chest and tricep strength, but it also trains your body for more advanced skills like the planche and front lever that we've been training for the past 3 years. By working through this extended range of motion, we build an insane amount of shoulder stability. Essentially, the Pelican push-up helps you unlock strength and mobility for future skills in calisthenics, so you gotta respect it. Proceeding forward to number 4, the almighty dragon squat. Turn your squatting foot inwards. Place your opposite leg's knee into the back of your squatting leg, like so. Begin to raise that leg into the sky and snake it around behind you. And as you begin to work through the negative portion of the exercise, you'll notice that you have to compress your core to a great degree. Getting that leg extended is no joke. So the perfect way to train this is by doing eccentrics, and if that doesn't work, you should do hip adductions. But not just any hip adductions, dragon hip adductions. This replicates the bottom of the dragon squat. Steadily move your chest inward as you gain strength, but no matter what, when you're doing these hip adductions, you want to make sure that you keep your heels on the ground. Otherwise, we're not training this properly, and of course you want to work both sides because we don't want any injuries. Moving on to skill number 5, the straddle front lever. Taking our front lever training a step further from year 2's advanced tuck, we want to work on our straddle position. I think the best way to train this is going to be doing single leg levers like you see here. Remember how your hips and pointing your toes plays a serious role in this. Skill number 6, the gymnastic ring muscle up. I know you're thanking me for year 2 because we've been using that false grip a lot lately. There's 3 things you need to focus on for the perfect ring muscle up. When you pull, keep your elbows tucked towards you. And then as you transition to the pushing motion, you bring your elbows out and up. And never forget to turn your wrist outwards at the top of the rep. Train this maneuver by kipping, the same way we practice the regular muscle up. Skill number 7, the deficit handstand push-up. We've already solidified our handstand push-up. The next thing we want to do is increase the range of motion, recruiting more of our muscle fibers for greater progress in the handstand push-up. Simply use a block or bench, and remember to stay safe as you work into these greater ranges of motion. Don't forget how to bail out of a handstand properly. Skill number 8, furthering our planche progressions. Now that we're on our 3rd year, we should be able to train some one-legged planches. Of course, we're working towards our straddle planche, but we might not be there yet. Use bands as needed. Skill number 9, the straddle 90-degree push-up. As you can see, all the skills we've trained before led to this. Strength won't be the limiting factor here. It'll be technique. Go from a handstand into the 90-degree hold, and then press yourself back up. The proper way to train this is going to be eccentrics, going from a handstand into a 90-degree hold. Trust me, you got this. And finally, our second flow is going to be the handstand to Kip-Up. Again, strength is not the limiting factor here. It's going to be technique. Combine the handstand, shoulder stand, and Kip-Up together for a seamless transition. And as we practice the Kip-Up, we're going to train this maneuver by doing a handstand into a roll. I know what you're thinking. This is a drastically less amount of skills than we learned the last couple of years. And you're right. And it's because you're not a beginner anymore. Just like All Might said, level 1 and level 50 power will never develop at the same rate. So congratulations. Make sure to go to strictfit.com to check out my calisthenics training app and programs.